Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to start a conversation with you all about navigating stress during the holiday season and just preparing to be your best in the new year. If you don't mind, we're going to start introductions here in a few moments, but please in the chat, feel free to tell us where you're joining from, a little bit more about yourself, what brings you here. We're really excited to get to know who's in the room with us today. My name is Naya McCrae Brown, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships at Mental Health America's National Office. I'm also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Virginia, so I'm really excited to share some clinical insights with you all today as well. We're really grateful that you've joined us today to kick off your holiday season with this really important webinar on building resilience for the holiday season. Managing stress in healthy ways during the holidays can set the foundation for a positive and productive start to the new year. When we prioritize self-care and balance during the busy season, we preserve our mental health and physical energy, making it easier to tackle any new challenges that may arise. Healthy stress management techniques help us to stay grounded and resilient amidst holiday pressures. By approaching the holidays with intentionality, we can avoid burnout and carry a sense of clarity and motivation into the new year. Taking small, consistent steps to care for ourselves now makes it easier to set and achieve meaningful goals in the months ahead. We have an amazing set of panelists here today. They are clinicians who will share tips on how they help their patients to have a happier holiday and how GeneSight can help you learn more about yourself heading into the new year as we all aim to tackle our stress and be our best selves with our mental health in the new year. Our first panelist is Elizabeth Johnson. She is an advanced practice nurse practitioner at the Center for Healing Arts and Wellness Services at the Women's Hospital in Evansville, Indiana.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you guys for having me. Yes, thank you.
Of course. Next, we have Manzur Rajput, who is a board certified psychiatrist in adult and geriatric psychiatry. He is currently the medical director of the Livingston County Mental Health System, ECT director of Trinity Health in Livonia, Michigan, and president of the Great Lakes Psychiatric Associates in Farmington Hills, Michigan. Welcome, Dr. Rajput.
Thank you very much. I'd love to be with you guys,
We also have joining us for today's discussion, Ryan Griggs, who works as the Senior Medical Science Liaison with the Mental Health Division of Myriad Genetics. Ryan uses his background as a teacher and PhD neurophysiologist to educate healthcare providers about the science of pharmacogenomics, empowering clinicians to personalize medication treatments for their patients living with depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Hello, Ryan. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Naya, and nice to see everyone here on the Zoom call. And just to let everyone know, I'm based in Ohio, if anyone's out there who's from Ohio.
Awesome. Yes, I'm joining today from Virginia myself. Thank you, panelists, for being here today. So now let's transition into some really rich discussion about how we can equip everyone on the call today to manage their holiday stress, but also to learn from some of the challenges that they might encounter, even successes that they are able to celebrate for the new year. Dr. Rajput, I'll pose the first question to you. If someone is thinking about the holiday season and the new year, what are some preventative or proactive steps that they can take to make sure that their time is as enjoyable as possible when it comes to their mental health?
So, a lot of people would come to me and they would talk about holiday stress, they would say, my God, I'm under a lot of stress, And so my always counseling to them is the holiday time is a time to celebrate and be happy and enjoy each other, And my always kind of encouragement to them is to don't look more at money and gifts and all those things. Look at what kind of quality time you can spend with your loved ones, what you can do which is more meaningful versus wrapping a toy and trying to put yourself in a lot of debt, because the whole gist of the holiday time is try to celebrate and be happy with each other, And when you put that thing into that perspective, and a lot of time people will say, my God, I never think like that. I never think about that way versus I'm under stress to go to all kind of malls and try to find deals and stand in lines to get things and do all those things. So I think the healthy way to approach and to counsel your patient is to look at the bottom line. What is the purpose of this uh, holiday season? And when they have that idea, that becomes even more easier for them. And especially if being a geriatric psychiatrist or geriatric trained, a lot of elderly folks have that problem. They don't have even a way to go to the mall, right? And the last time I asked my patient, I said, why are you so stressed? She said, my ride did not show up. I was not able to go. And then I said, how can we fix this problem? And then we came up with the idea that we are going to give every grandchild $20 bill in a nice card. And I said, the kids, you don't know what they want. And I call it a PST, it's a problem solving therapy. She started laughing. She said, my God, why come I did not think about that? So I said, kids like money. You don't know which, game they want. And if they have the money, they're going to go get the game. And we laughed about it. And the next thing she went her merry way. So there are a lot of small, small things which we can bring to their attention. And also, it's very important them to know that too, that not everybody is wanting a toy or wanting things from them.
Yeah.
Spending a time is more important. And I asked them, when was the last time you talked to your son or a daughter who lives in a California, or who lives Michigan is the coldest state, a lot of people run away from here, and who lives where uh, so this is how I look at it. And for sure, there are cultural things too. There are traditions which have to be respected. There are religious connotations to these things. But when you bring these things to people's attention, that it's not a time to be stressed, it's a time to be happy and celebrate and be with each other, it makes a big difference in their lives.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
My
sharing
pleasure.
that, Dr. Rajput. I know you have to leave and jump off the call a little bit early, but you shared so many insights, even just during that brief amount of time, specifically about simplifying things,
Yeah,
right? And I think that's
very
something
important.
that we can all benefit from, whether we're working in the field, individuals who are just humans showing up during the holiday season. Um, I also appreciate this piece about culture, and I'm going to give Ryan and Elizabeth an opportunity to share. But I think, just understanding that regardless of how old we are or our geographic location, the way that I celebrate here in Virginia might be very different than how someone celebrates in the Pacific Northwest. Folks in New York might have colder weather, different traditions that they have available to them that others don't have. So I'm wondering, Ryan and Elizabeth, through that scope and lens of lifespan, culture, all of the different things that sort of intersect to become our identity, what insights do you all have for simplifying the holiday, doing things that are proactive and preventative, that can honor our experiences as individuals as well?
Now, I think cross-culturally, there's a stigma in asking for help when you're struggling. And some cultures that's more prevalent than others. I'm a white male, so I identify with maybe a segment of the population that is less likely to ask for help. And so what I have experienced in my life, I've had some personal trauma and tragedy. I mean, my parents both died at kind of a young age for me, and in tragic ways. And I think to create that consistency, one of the things that I did in my life was to ask for help. And that actually happened last year. I sought out therapy through our employer-sponsored endeavor that connects you with therapy, and you can choose to go online, you can choose to go in person. I chose a therapist that was available in person, and I started that therapy with a therapist maybe in October of last year. And even though the holiday time is a stressful time and a busy time because you're worrying about maybe buying gifts for your children or worrying about getting to a place where you can spend quality time with family when you can't drive, for example. And so the consistency that I made in my life was to continue that therapy through the holiday season and after the holiday season, so that I was able to prioritize my mental well-being, so that the time that I could spend with my family and friends during the holidays could be more quality.
Very good.
I agree, Ryan. One thing that I say to patients, and my staff hear me say it all the time, and they kind of eye roll because I say it too much, is that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. And something that Dr. Rajput had made a comment that kind of got my gears going is, he has that geriatric population. I work with a lot of young women, young mothers. My scope is really around that perinatal, postpartum population. And so we talk about cultures, but also season of life, how depending on the season of life you're in, that may look different in terms of your access to care. Like Doctor was saying, even just having a vehicle. In my world, it's these mamas that don't want to drag a newborn out to go to see a therapist every 2 weeks. So season of life that people are navigating also plays a huge role in how they may see their own needs. I think even just with that geriatric population, asking for help is when they're already needing maybe help with some of their daily living tasks, somebody to just even get their groceries. Oh my goodness, just to pile one more need on top of that can be something that just always gets put on that back burner.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think those are such incredible insights from all of you about how ultimately, we're each just a culmination of our lived experiences, whether that be culturally, age, where we're from, where we're currently living, and our mental health sort of is the thread that can kind of tie all of those things together. And when we prioritize that, it really enables us to navigate the holiday season, New Year, and any other opportunities or celebrations that we encounter throughout the year in the best way possible. I'm wondering from each of you, from your, either personal or professional experience, if there's certain trends that you notice at this time of year with your clients. Maybe that is related to crises or medication management or other things that you see an uptick in or even a decrease in as folks sort of center the connection and sense of belonging of the holidays, but maybe encounter a little bit more stress because of those things.
I want to say this, that for sure I see as the December's rolls in, a lot of folks would be making appointments, urgent appointments, they need to be seen because they're under a lot of stress. And they would expect me to give them another pill or do something pharmacologically. And what I would say in December time, I tell my office managers to have a longer appointment. Usually we do a med check within 15 minutes, but I tell my front office that people who need to be seen urgent, there is some problem, so book a 30-minute appointments with them, so you can spend a time and say, listen, this is just a holiday stress, and to give you another pill is not going to fix the problem. So
Mhm.
let's figure out what is making you so nervous and anxious, and troubleshoot for you. And believe it or not, at the end of 30 minutes, they would say, my God, I'm so glad I came, doctor, to you. And now I think I'm okay. I don't need an extra pill. So that's how I do it. And majority of the time, I don't need to do any psychopharmacologic intervention. It's just some kind of guidance, some troubleshooting would get them going. I'm gonna say bye here. It was a pleasure to know all of you guys, wonderful people, and your insights. And one of these days we are gonna again run into each other. Okay. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you guys. Bye bye. Bye bye.
I think his exit, it highlights kind of time as our most valuable resource, and he had to take a step out because he had some patients to take care of, and especially in this trying times of the holiday stress. And so it's okay.
Yeah, I just to tag on to your question and segueing with what Doctor was saying is, is, there's times where, medication changes are always put into question, and how sometimes when somebody frequently will come this time of year, and first of all, Christmas is in 2 to 3 weeks, right? And so they're like, I need help yesterday. What can I do? And so an algorithm that I often talk through with patients when we're making a decision any time of year, but especially this time of year, is a medication change appropriate? I'll sometimes go through in terms of, talking about new symptoms, what symptoms have always been there, but maybe they're amplified. What is the severity of those symptoms? How long are those symptoms lasting, day to day or week to week? And so what is the severity? What's the longevity? And what's the frequency? Quite honestly, it's not much different than when we would talk about something as simple as migraine headaches. We would ask ourselves those same questions. Is this a situation where maybe I need to go to bed earlier and cut the caffeine, and that's really going to help me? So those are some simple self-assessment questions that patients can ask themselves when they're seeing that uptick in their symptoms, is saying, okay, the level of severity, how frequent, and the duration, how long has this been going on, and that is often a good indicator as to when professionally you need to step forward and take some type of step for some type of intervention.
I would completely agree with you, Elizabeth. Essentially, folks can start to look at like what their sort of baseline is, starting as early as like the summer. That's when all of us are in our peak. The days are longer. There's a little bit more leisure time for some folks who work in certain fields. And so if your routines are starting to change, it starts to get colder and the days are shorter, and there's more expectations on your plate than maybe previously were before, and you're noticing that there's sort of a circumstantial difference in the ways that you're showing up in the world, maybe making small changes with your routine can help to support you in having a better outcome. It may be, that there's something hormonal going on, or that there's a mental health condition that you want to explore a little bit further. But oftentimes by making small changes to the amount of sugar that we're consuming, maybe the amount of alcohol that we're consuming, maybe caffeine, or what time we're going to sleep, monitoring those things can often lead to a significant change in your overall well-being as well. So I'll move on to the next question. Oh,
If
yeah,
I
of
may
course,
interrupt
Ryan.
there, I think one thing that changes for me during the holidays, as a person, both professionally and personally, are my kids are at home. And so I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're home for 2 or 3 weeks. And, I'm kind of still working a little bit, and there's additional challenges to navigate there, but also, I forget that, oh, this is an opportunity to spend more quality time with my family while they're home and worry a little bit less about other things. Now, I will say that, like, my role with GeneSight and with this allows me to do those things. And some people may have socioeconomic challenges that don't allow them to spend that quality time with their children during the holidays as much as they would like to. And so I wonder, Elizabeth, do you see any patients around the holiday time that where that the child dynamic in and out of the home during this holiday period changes their mental well-being, or how they might cope with that?
Well, I think it's number one, anytime you drastically change routine, and the holidays are the ultimate change in routine. I mean, if you see my house right now, it looks like Santa exploded, right? I mean, it's so many layers of change and chaos. And what is the cardinal thing specific to children that we preach from day one? Consistent routine, understand expectations. And what is ultimate Christmas? Surprise! Surprise! And
Chaos.
so it's not only a tremendous stressor onto the parents that these kids are managing a lot of emotion, big emotions through all of this. They're also managing, my kid's not in school every day. What are we going to do? How am I going to keep you, from not tearing down the Christmas tree and, getting in all the Christmas presents, and, how am I going to keep my sanity as a parent? But also just managing the sheer emotional chaos that the holidays have, the lights, the sounds. I mean, everywhere you hear a bell ringing now. And for people that the sounds, the momentum, the movement, the color, it can be so over the top, so overstimulated. They're not in the structure of that school day. They're not going to bed on time and in that night routine. So Ryan, to answer your question, I think there's a lot of layers as to why that's stressful. And working with women often over Christmas, they'll joke and be like, "Man, I can't wait till my kid's back in school." For what it's worth, they say the same thing about summer break too. But to the element of pulling out of routine, chaos, travel, all the things, and then shoving back into routine for all of us is a huge layer of stress. But when you're talking about parents in seasons of childbearing, child raising, those kids are in the home, I think that's an excellent point to bring up. Excellent.
I love that point, Elizabeth. And when you were speaking, it reminded me of something that I used to encourage parents to do during any time of anticipated change. So back to school season, the holidays, New Year, even, going into that summer break where there's a huge shift from the routine of the school day to, longer days during the summer where kids are outside playing. And that's to invite children into the routine making process. So to ask them, what should our days look like? When should we eat? When's a good time for us to start to settle down and get our bedtime routine together? What time would we like to wake up as a morning as a family? And if your schedule is conducive to that, really allowing them the space to be able to have that input gives them a sense of autonomy and independence that can also equip them to challenge that surprise factor that you mentioned. If there's so many things changing, what are the things that are controllable, and how can each of us play a role in doing our best with the things that are controllable is really important.
And in understanding as parents, Ryan, I'm a big proponent that it's okay to say no. You may not want to add on the extra Christmas parties and to this event and the cookie exchange and all these things that start to culminate. And I think there was some value in COVID when there was some of the restriction of some of that, where people weren't under so much pressure to say yes to all these activities. And so having a spirit of mindfulness, of wisdom when you're agreeing to family activities, or even as a parent, what activities taking me away from my family and making my husband be solo dad tonight? What's the value of that? Is it worth it? Is it wise? And so just having that spirit of discretion before we're just jumping into all of these tasks or things because they're traditions, because, all those reasons that we love to just tack on the tasks and the extra engagements and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I'm seeing that we have a question from the chat that actually speaks to exactly what you were mentioning, Elizabeth, about the pressures that we can sometimes feel from others, whether those are others in our community, our friends, our family members, around gifts, being able to be financially responsible during this season. And a good friend of mine about a year ago mentioned something that has really resonated with me in terms of my financial limits, my social limits, all of the things that we have to consider, especially during this time of year. What she said to me was, "Naya, I want you to think about what all of your yeses are saying no to. When you say, sure, yeah, I'll go to this thing. I'll be at that party. I'll be there early. I can help you set up. If you say, you know what, I can invest in this very expensive gift for the loved one in my life, then what? What's the sacrifice that comes after that?" And sometimes thinking about that proactively, starting at this time of year, can support each of us in being more intentional about the ways that we exert all of our resources, financially, emotionally, et cetera. And I'm wondering if you guys have any additional insight about boundary making during this time of year.
My wife and I have had several conversations about gift giving, and I think we that's caused conflict in our relationship because of the stress of feeling the need to try to make all of our family members that we will see over the holidays feel special by giving them a gift. And I think we could both utilize certain strategies of taking a step back. And I loved what you pointed out, Naya, about pre-planning that, because that's going to happen. That's a routine of the holidays in our world. Maybe that's not a routine in everyone's world, but in our world, that's the routine of the holidays, is we see multiple different groups of families across multiple different cities and states. And I'm sure that's very common. And if we had discussed our gift plan prior to the argument conversation that we had over, well, I don't think we need to give everybody a gift every year. These people have what they need. I think our time, as we've been mentioning time as the theme throughout here, with those people is the gift. Now that may be a little presumptive, but I think the strategy of having those conversations before would be a really good benefit to my family relationship.
Yeah. One thing that I personally struggle with is just being impulsive with the little things. You know, you decide, you know, financially what you're going to do or what you're going to spend. And then it's like, you know, everywhere, every store right now, it's this little kiosk here and this little shiny thing right here that's getting your attention. And, oh, I got to grab this and I got to grab that. And there's no mindfulness around impulsively spending. There's none. And then the backlash comes in January when everybody starts getting those credit card bills and the compounding stressors. So that's something I've personally been setting some boundaries on and just being accountable on. Is just my own impulse shopping, and that's even for myself. You know, this is some of this stuff is very applicable well into the new year. Just in terms of the, you know, some of those impulsive spending choices that we can fall into, and how stores and, you know, flash deals and it's Black Friday, so I need to buy this, or it's Amazon Prime Day, so I've got to get onto this. You know, our society just loves to just push and cater to that sense of need to do right now and buy right now.
Absolutely. I think it beckons us to get creative as well in terms of how we show up for others. You know, we live, once again, as Ryan mentioned, in this world where oftentimes there is an emphasis on the monetary, you know, financial gifts that we can provide for one another. But what are some other ways that you can show up for an individual in your life if you are looking to be able to give them something that is a token of gratitude? I'll provide an example of recently. I was thinking about like something small to get for all of my technicians. I like to get my hair done. I like to get my nails done. And so these are people that I've built a relationship with throughout the year. And I was like, you know, I want to be able to get them something small, but like, you know, those something smalls are adding up as I continue to think about all of my different service providers. And I happened to be supporting one of my nieces through a bake sale. So I was making cupcakes from scratch at home. And I was like, you know what if I just put a couple of these aside and ensured that there was also a cupcake available with a cute little like ribbon on it for my nail tech and my hairstylist. And I went and I hand delivered those during like, you know, my regular lunch break during the day. And they were so grateful for that. It was like a surprise because of the timing. It was something that they could appreciate right there in the moment. And I think that might have been even more meaningful than the gift card that I was thinking about being able to provide them. And so I think that this season and the intentionality of it all and the pre-planning of it all invites us to be able to think about our resources, our means, and what we can do to show up for other people in a way that you might not be what we expected previously.
I think all of our souls just deeply crave to that to be enough and to be appreciated and to be valued. And that's exactly what you demonstrated literally with a cupcake. Is you matter to me. I'm grateful for you. You bring value to my life. You add to my life. And why we put a lot of pressure to wait till Christmas to really feel the need to demonstrate these types of so valuable affirmations to those around us is something that personally, again, I want to work on too. Going into the new year, is I'm not waiting till Christmas to feel the need to you know, do something simple to demonstrate my deep care and appreciation for the value that you are to me.
Yeah, fostering that connection and that connectedness to other people is a way to deal with things like depression or anxiety. And I think that's something that we can promote beyond gifts, as we're talking about. And something that you mentioned, that cupcake says, I'm grateful. We can also say that with words, right? And so I think a heartfelt note if you are uncomfortable with confrontation, can be a great gift for someone that you love to foster that connection that you may have lost throughout the year because life gets hectic. And now is an opportunity to reflect and tell those that you love that you're grateful for them and why specifically.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got another question, and I think it sort of ties in some of the things that we've spoken about celebrating individuals in whatever ways that we can, in ways that are sustainable, and being able to show up for individuals through like just heartfelt moments and connectedness. Some folks are experiencing a lack of that, or they're struggling to be able to reestablish connectedness during this time of year because they may be grieving family members or navigating just not being in as close of a relationship. That grief can be, literal, where they've experienced the passing of a loved one. Or they may be grieving, an old town that they used to live in and they've moved now, they've relocated. And COVID, so many of us lost social relationships and, we're still kind of trying to put the puzzle pieces back together now. What advice would you all have for individuals who are navigating the particularly distressing moment of grief during the holiday season?
This is in my subspecialty with perinatal mental health. This is a time of year where I'm walking alongside a lot of women that were hoping to be holding their newborn baby this Christmas, or they were hoping to get that cute pregnancy photo in front of the Christmas tree, and they're not. And so, first of all, I would say, before we start thinking about what trinkly gift, we want to maybe give somebody, spending some time thinking about those around us that have suffered losses, that we can just pour love into. And again, this is well going into the new year. We may be good about thinking about people at Christmas, but are we thinking of them in January, in February, and reaching out to give them love and support? My tips for working with patients that are walking alongside somebody that has suffered a loss is, number one, it's good to reiterate that they are not alone. With that being said, that doesn't mean you're walking the same feelings of loss and grief that other person is. We don't want to minimize what they're going through by, cliche comments like, blessings, I understand, prayers, comments that are just kind of passing, but don't carry a lot of value or carry a lot of action in demonstrating that you are truly not alone. I've never lost this before. I've never suffered this before, but you are still not alone. I don't necessarily share the loss, but I share friendship with you. And being okay asking, it's okay to ask, what's a way that I can help you, as opposed to assuming, well, you lost this, so I think I'm going to do this. That may not resonate with that person if you buy that a gift or that action, or frame a photo and give it to them. There's certain things that may not resonate. It's okay to ask them, how is the best way to support you right now? And letting them verbalize what that need particularly looks like for them. Maybe it's that single mama that's like, I could really use a set of hands so I could clean the kitchen. You might be surprised at how practical and foundational some of these supportive things are that we can do cost-free to lift up these ones that are suffering a loss.
I really like the comment about being not alone and asking what someone needs. And this question really resonates with me. My mom died when I was 8 in a car accident, and obviously unexpected, and it made me who I am today and all those things. But the holidays really bring back those memories. We get out the family picture books, and I see these pictures of myself at the same age of my kids, and it's just sad. And I've now outlived my mom, and my kid is almost the age that I was when my mom died. And the holidays just bring back all of these flooding memories. And like it's okay to be sad. That's what I always tell myself. It my wife, we were watching a show the other day, and I looked over and she was crying because the show we were watching was about somebody whose wife died and mom died and the kid, and she just feels for me. She does not have that lived experience. Both of her parents are still alive. But she asks me, what do you need? How can I help? And like I think what I would say to the audience is that, if you've lost a loved one, you're not alone, and it's okay to be sad, and ask for help. That, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. As someone who also navigates grief during the holidays, what's really resonated for me is that I have the ability to start small. I don't have to have it all figured out one year after another, have like this perfect moment that is set up to celebrate the individuals that we've lost. It's just about being able to think about them, remember their presence, and honor, to be quite honest, their legacy during the holiday season. And I think that looks different for each individual. But as we're thinking about this sort of like intentionality and planning, I would encourage folks who are also navigating grief to be able to incorporate one small moment, whether that's making their favorite dish, whether that's looking at a photo book or a series of pictures, or watching their favorite movie. What's one thing that you can do to honor that individual's
Well,
legacy in your life?
just to tag on to that, I think you bring up an excellent point. Burying your head in the sand brings no healing. It brings no closing sense of peace in what has occurred with you. Pushing it down, trying just to ignore it, and not give any acknowledgement to it does nothing. In fact, well, I would say it does something. It's absolutely detrimental. It's like continuing to put the lid on that pasta water that's simmering, and then you turn your back and 30 seconds later, it's everywhere. And so I love your point in acknowledge it. Don't stuff it. Don't putting the lid on it and then wondering why you've got pasta water all over your stove 2 months later.
Yeah, that was me for a long time. That's why I'm here, is to talk about it and to share the experience with other people, because I feel like that might make it okay for them to share their experiences and reach out.
100%, 100%. And thank you to each of you for your transparency, during that conversation. As we're talking about something as heavy as grief, there might be individuals on this call or those in the audience that are thinking about whatever their big distressing thing is. It could be their experience of a mental health condition. It could be grief. It could be any number of crises that they're navigating right now. And they might be saying to themselves, like, oh, it would be selfish of me to think about me during this time of year because my family's coming into town. I have this going on with the kids. I have these other things going on. I don't even have the time to think about my mental health. And I have my own critique of that, but I'll save my critique of that sort of self-talk. I'm wondering if you all have just one piece of advice that you could share with someone who might be having similar thoughts today.
Well, I feel, number one, when we start saying that to ourselves, that's part of the lie of depression. That's part of the lie. See, depression lies. It lies to us. It clouds our truth, and anxiety can do the same thing. And so it's a lie that it's selfish to get help. That's part of the lie of depression. And from a medical provider, I want to say this. I always try to parallel mental health with physical health, with diabetes, with heart disease, and put it all on the same spectrum. And no matter what area of medicine you're in, we do agree. We do agree on one thing, and that is early intervention always sees sooner results, and less intervention is often needed. So delaying your time to get care often will result in honestly requiring longer or more intensive intervention.
And a lot of that has to do with the way that the brain reorganizes under those different depressive conditions. And if you have neuroplasticity that's changing the way that your brain is connected within itself, that is manifesting in depression, you may keep changing the brain, and it will take a lot more treatment, intervention, as Elizabeth said,
Yep.
to reorganize that brain back to a scenario where you're feeling like yourself again. And it's all about that lost time in terms of sitting with those feelings, with that loss, and that lost time that you also have with the longer it takes for that intervention to work.
100%. Untreated mental health has two impacts, many more, but I'll highlight two. Number one, it always has physical manifestations. Your physical health will always suffer in some capacity. And number two, and very important, I'm saying I don't necessarily, feel like I want to get help right now because I don't want to, it's selfish of me or delay, doing X, Y, or Z because I'm going to get help. The reality is when we're not okay, it has such collateral impact on families, on households. So by not getting help, you are having impact. That has impact too. It has impact on your own physical health, and it has impact like that domino all throughout, that snowball. That Tasmanian devil is the term that I'll use, is going through entire families and households and friendships and work environments and our jobs. The impact is exponential when we continue to delay the care.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more that, that self-talk, although, it comes from just, once again, what Ryan mentioned, being able to understand that there's a chemical imbalance happening and there's a difficulty with navigating some of the intrusive thoughts that show up while you're navigating depression. But always be willing to talk back, always be willing to redefine that narrative. And what I would offer as a counter argument is it's not selfish, because what version of yourself are you bringing to the world when you continue to ignore these things? That in my opinion seems to be like it might be the more selfish thing to do is to show up in a version of yourself that's not your best and to continue to allow that to spiral and ultimately implode. So hopefully individuals hear us and that there's always a way to get started. There's small things that you can do.
The women that I work with will say to me, they'll joke like, I thought my kid was the problem. I thought I had a bad kid. And all of a sudden, when I got help, how I parented, how I managed, how I communicated, all of a sudden I realized my kid was just a mirror.
Absolutely.
They were just a mirror giving me right back what they were seeing.
Yes, healing is available to you. It's available to your family. It's available to how you show up in your workplace. And that's available to everyone. There's always a starting place. I know at Mental Health America, we have one of the nation's only completely free and confidential screening programs. So that's one opportunity for folks to get connected with resources, whether that be a formal clinician, or if you're like, just like you mentioned before, I don't have time, I might not have the financial resources. We also have DIY tools that you can use just to get started around challenging those negative thoughts. And you can do that. Normally it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for individuals to work through a module to be able to really confront the things that are showing up for you and to make a plan of action for getting started on prioritizing your mental health. Are there any other resources that you all have in mind that you'd like to share if someone just needs one solid place to start?
Well, for my scope in perinatal, Postpartum Support International is the world's largest organization geared towards all areas of families, partners, spouses, women themselves in any season of fertility, pregnancy loss, postpartum depression and anxiety, as well as a plethora of other resources about mood and anxiety disorders, medications, support groups. They're a wonderful free resource.
For me as a patient, in some respects, things that I've tried or thought about trying are starting a gratitude journal. I think this could be a really easy way to make a step in the right direction. Mindfulness, I like mindfulness when I do it, but taking the time to do it is the activation energy to find that time, to make that time. That has been a struggle for me. I think going for a walk, paying attention to your diet, these are all easy things that you can do in the interim to begin that step towards wellness. like when Dr. Rajput said earlier, we have patients coming in over the holidays, I need more medication. Well, sometimes more medication is not going to be the answer, especially if your genetics says that you might not even respond to that medication. And when you change medications, if you either change medication, you change a dose, that those the impact of that takes weeks for most of the medications that we're using to treat depression and anxiety and other mental health conditions. And so, when you're looking forward to the new year and thinking about what can I do to help myself get better, there's some small steps you can do on your own. Check out the resources that Elizabeth mentioned and that Naya mentioned. And then there's maybe some longer term resources that can look moving forward, including using something like GeneSight to help your clinician tell them more about how your body processes or responds or metabolizes medications differently so that they can make a better informed decision about how they might give you a medication that could help you in combination with some form of talk therapy. Naya is a therapist. Elizabeth, I'm sure, gives their clinicians tools, or sorry, gives their patients tools to navigate that journey on their own. And so I think looking forward to after the holidays, that can be potentially a meaningful step for people in their journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you all for sharing those resources. So we've sort of spent some time thinking about how individuals might be navigating stress and the ways that they can build resilience during the holiday season. I wanted to ask each of you, what's one thing you're doing to find joy during the holiday season or even going into the new year? And what's one strategy that you can think of that might be a good starting place for individuals who are thinking already about the new year? They're thinking about how they want to show up and be a new version of themselves in the new year. How can they begin to find joy and sort of optimize the experiences that they're going through right now to be able to identify joy for themselves in the new year?
Well, I would counteract or counter question that when I would to answer your question is I would start by saying to myself, what's stealing my joy? I mean, I would love to have a sense of joy every day throughout the day, and life is a slinky. It's not always going to be all joy in that context. But first, that assessment for me is what's stealing my joy in this minute. Sometimes it's something as simple as, oh my goodness, I slept terrible last night. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted today. So to recharge my battery, I'm gonna get off my phone, not doom scroll, and I'm gonna go to bed a half hour earlier, something like that. So I think for me, it's assessing what's the thief in my joy world, and what are those practical tools in that moment that I can maybe implement. Ryan was great advice. What can I implement now? I mean, we talk about big picture and ultimate goals. But what's a simple small strategy that I can do now? I can tell you in Southern Indiana, we haven't had sunshine in like 2 weeks. Today we have sunshine. And so there's a part of me that's literally gonna, I see patients this afternoon, position my desk in a way where I can get a little bit of extra sunshine. It's this tiny little step that literally fills me. And we think of joy almost like a cup, and there's times where that cup is running low, and times we need to pour into that cup, and times we need to say, why is that getting poured out of my cup? What's stealing it?
Yeah, I was going to say what brings me joy. And so the common thread there is self-reflection.
Mm.
Think about yourself. Take time to think about yourself and decide what's stealing your joy or what brings you joy, and make a plan to take action to eliminate or gain that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. As for me personally, I've based on that self-reflection identified that rushing and like doing things too quickly is a huge thief of joy. And so one thing that I'm doing, that I'm being intentional about going into the holiday season is just going slower. By making a meal, taking my time to do that, to, really embrace and smell the scent of the cupcakes coming out of the oven, to really be able to be grounded and mindful as I'm picking out individual Christmas gifts or making something for those that I care about. Going slower has really brought me a renewed sense of joy in the season. It's something I want to continue to do in the new year because these can be specific times for individuals who have a lot of different connections, have a strong sense of community, have a lot of obligations, maybe with faith leaders or those in their community where they want to be able to volunteer and show up for other people. And by going slower and really thinking about your intention and the meaning behind doing those tasks, I think it can bring us a renewed sense of joy. So that's something that I want to bring into the new year instead of thinking about, I want to get in the gym, I want to do these things, I want to have all of these fitness goals. What's my why? And how can I ensure that my why is reflected as I'm doing that tasks? And that's by going slower. Each of us working in the field probably understand that our central nervous system gets all wacky when we're rushing. There's things, hormone levels are going up and down. It's very difficult to be able to just center and regulate and think clearly if we're moving too quickly. So I think that for me, going slower throughout the holiday season is something I really want to be intentional about. We've got about 4 more minutes left, so I just want to kind of summarize our conversation and offer you all the opportunity to share last words with our audience today. Thank you so much for joining and being here to share all of your specific insights. We've really done an incredible job of thinking about how individuals can simplify and slow down during the holiday season, but also how it's okay to acknowledge and make meaning of some of the difficulties so that you can learn from them and glean all of those insights for the next year and beyond, especially when it comes to your mental health. Do any of you have last thoughts for our audience today? If there's one thing that you could leave them with?
Go ahead, Ryan.
I think the power of connection can be healing, and what for me, being vulnerable and knowing it's okay to ask for help is what works for me, and I imagine that would work for other people too. Being vulnerable and asking for help, it's okay.
Yeah. I will say, I had talking with a patient this morning, and our conversation went something along the lines of, no matter what your 2024 looked like, take baby steps. And even if they're just baby steps, it's still momentum and it's still moving forward. You're not going backwards. And as much as we just want to say it's just a baby step to do X or to do Y or to stop doing this or to start doing that, take some baby steps. They add up and it's still forward progress.
Absolutely. Simplifying, baby steps, the power of connection and community. These are things that can resonate with each of us year round, but particularly during the holiday season, we wanted to gift each of you with the opportunity to reflect on that and think about how to incorporate it into your lives. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so grateful for the opportunity to share insights. If you're interested in learning more, I believe there's going to be a resource email that's sent after this to any attendees. So feel free to check your emails for that. And just thank you for spending time with us today. Have a great season.
Everyone.
Thank you. Take care.